We are recording.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session as part of the DPI Arts Education Team's Making Lemonade series. This is Rehearsal and Beyond, How to Teach Music Online. Just a quick note that we will be recording this webinar and posting it to our webinar archive. You can also click on the link to the bit.ly that has been in the chat. We will post that again for you. And this is where you can follow along with the slide deck and access all of these slides later if you wish. There will be a lot of resources that you'll want to come back to and look at more in your own time. So make sure that you hang on to this and come back and look through all of this wonderful information. Please take a moment to look at this page here where you'll see a lot of clickable links. The little splash at the bottom takes you to our Google site homepage. This page contains updates and links to register for any upcoming webinars and a webinar archive of our previous recordings. Also a page devoted to remote learning resources and many other resources that you'll find helpful in planning and implementation. I've also pasted a lot of those in the chat as well for you. You can also sign up for our listserv to receive newsletters in your email and follow our Facebook page for updates as well. All of those links have been shared with you. I'd like to take a moment to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Sayward Grinley. I am your dance and visual art consultant for DPI. I transitioned into this role in May, so I've been learning everything virtually, just like a lot of you are doing with your work right now. My arts education team member is Brandon Rader, and you'll hear from him quite a bit in a little. He is your music and theater arts consultant. He and I work very closely as a team as we each have extensive experience in all 4 arts areas. He and I both have experience also with virtual teaching and virtual learning ourselves. And although she's not here with us today, our section chief for social studies and arts education is former theater educator, Dr. Lori Major Carlin, and she really leads us with a solutions-focused mindset. I'd like to take a moment to share with you we are very excited to have so many amazing guest speakers with you today. We're going to let them each introduce themselves to you briefly here. We'll start with Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Kraft. I am the Secondary Music Administrator in the Instructional Services Department for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools.
My name is Amber Houk. I'm an elementary school music educator in McDowell County Schools, and I'm a member of the North Carolina Music Educators Technology Committee.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Spencer, Director of Education for the North Carolina Symphony.
Hey, I'm Justin Dickson. I'm the band director at Carroll Magnet Middle School in Raleigh, and I'm also with Amber on the NCMEA Technology Committee.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rose, and I teach music and direct the virtual ensemble at my school, North Carolina Virtual Academy, and I am a full-time virtual teacher even before COVID hit.
Great, thank you everyone. We are so excited to have you here with us today. A few housekeeping things. Actually, I don't see this slide. We do encourage your videos, but they are not necessary. We also ask that you stay on topic and you use the chat for any questions or ideas that you have to share with people. We stay solutions focused, and remember to self-mute and stay, we do have it on closed captioning. Oops, we should. And that way you can follow along with the slides. There you go. We will be recording, so you can come back and follow along with anything after and rewatch that recording if you need to. This is our state-mandated program of WebEx. Here's a reminder of your screen and controls. Take a moment to notice where you mute, the chat, and the video layout features. The agenda for today will include a Q&A for you to be able to ask the panel questions, so feel free to think of those as they are presenting so that you have them for that portion. But you're always welcome to put questions into the chat as well, and we will bring them up during that section for you. Our webinar goals for today, we plan to help you gain confidence in teaching the North Carolina arts standards remotely, but we will also reevaluate what standards are being focused on reframe expectations for what music class looks like, and learn how to implement virtual rehearsal strategies with performance ensemble, as we hear from some educators who are already making it work. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my arts ed team member, Brandon.
Thank you so much. Sayward, if you are able to look up what the password for this is, that would be great while I'm going over this.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So, you know, many of us are feeling fairly isolated, especially if you are self-isolating. And, you know, even when we're not self-isolating, we're often the only person teaching our content in our building or sometimes even our district. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that we're not alone. So just taking a quick minute to look at arts in North Carolina. We have 1.55 million public school students, which are served in 386 public school units across 2,500 public schools. And in those schools, there are 7,026 arts teachers teaching those 4 arts areas. So there really are plenty of people to reach out and be thought partners for you. We are excited about the required arts education credit for graduation, starting with students entering 6th grade in 21-22, which is the next school year. If you are familiar with an arts required credit for graduation, that has been a local mandate, but now we are excited because it's legislated by the General Assembly. So all students across the entire state of North Carolina will now get to experience the arts in every single public school. We do teach via the comprehensive arts education model of arts education, arts integration, and arts exposure. And we do believe that even in the virtual and remote setting, our students are best served by being able to experience all 3 parts of these comprehensive arts education areas. And that's part of the reason that we've put this series together for you today. I just want to talk about remote learning for a second. Remember that this is not a public education crisis. It is a public health crisis. And because of that, I think it's important for us to, you know, even though we were caught off guard in the spring and we perhaps weren't as ready as we could have been, we have the opportunity to create structures and routines and procedures for our students to make sure that they are not just successful, but that they are continuing to learn and hopefully even their performance skills are improving. If you are not familiar with this framework yet, please take a minute to come back to this later on your own time. Again, remember that this entire slide deck is available to you via the bit.ly down at the bottom. This framework was published by the the Department of Instruction and Friday Institute last April, and it really addresses several great design principles to ensure that our students have a framework for success in remote learning. It does specifically address remote learning as something separate from virtual learning. Lastly, I mean, if you've seen our other webinars, you know there's a lot more that I like to talk about, but our speakers today are going to speak to many of those things, and including this one. But I just want us to remember that we can do this, even if it's long term, even if it's short term, and our attitude affects the way that we, or our students' attitudes are back to us. So I know that you are itching to get right to the content, so we're going to jump right in. I just want to share a reflection journal for you very quickly. You'll get this in the chat. This isn't necessarily a note-taking document, but if you'd like to take notes in it, you absolutely can. It's a way to help process information after each speaker speaks, or when you come back to this on your own time. So if you'd like to do it now, you are welcome to. If you've been in our Google Classroom, you know all about the way that you can create documents and copy them straight into somebody else's Google Drive. So if you're prompted to create a copy, just go ahead and hit accept or make a copy, and you'll get your very own copy of this document so that you don't have to adjust it for anybody else. So without any further ado, I'd like to reintroduce Mr. Andrew Kraft.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Andrew Kraft. I'm Secondary Music Administrator, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools. Just a little bit about what I do. I am in the Instructional Services Department, where I visit about 63 middle and high school band, chorus, orchestra, and piano teachers and provide feedback. I coordinate and lead our professional development offerings for music teachers, and I plan and organize our county events. So, moving on, so looking at the standards, the North Carolina Essential Standards are divided into 3 categories: musical literacy, musical response, and contextual relevancy. Musical literacy, especially the first 2 strands, are the most visible in a performing arts class, but not always the musical response or the contextual relevancy standards. In my experience of visiting performance-based classes, and I did visit about 116 classes before the school closure last year, I would primarily see the ML1, which is the Apply Elements of Music, and the ML2, the Interpret Sound and Symbol Notation standards only, and then the ML3, which is the Create Music Standard, MR, Musical Response, and CR, Contextual Relevancy, were often never observed. But remote learning is a great opportunity for us as educators to master the musical response and contextual relevancy standards because they are remote friendly with numerous resources that are available online. All right, so next slide. Just a quick note that the music standards are mastery based and the high school standards have 4 levels of proficiency. As the standards progress, the curriculum includes expanded clarifying objectives and requires a greater level of rigor. For instance, just in the terminology for beginning, you might see the term recognize, whereas when you move up to intermediate, you'll see classify, explain for proficient, and implement for advanced. Another example is the amount of clarifying objectives. For instance, there's 4 clarifying objectives for musical response for the advanced level and only 3 for proficient. Always keep this in mind when you're planning your lessons for ensembles with students who are enrolled in the same class but at different levels. And in my school system, we had some success stories. For starters, again, almost all my classroom visits prior to the school closure in March demonstrated only the first 2 musical literacy standards. But after the school closure in March, my instructional role shifted from classroom visits, because we weren't in the classroom, to online lesson evaluations. And almost half of the online lessons I saw demonstrated the musical response or contextual relevancy standards. Our teachers would regularly meet online for PLTs where they frequently discussed CR, ML, ML3, MR, as well as social emotional learning. Without the pressure to perform, teachers were experimenting more in their lessons, trying new ideas, and diving deep into the musical response and contextual relevancy standards. So there was an immediate change in their instruction and mindset because of this shift to remote learning. So ML3, a little bit about the ML3 standards, not just for jazz band. It's one of my favorite standards because it's fun. It's great for engaging students and tapping into their creative side. Just a note from unpacking the standards, at the middle grades level, students should be able to provide simple rhythmic and melodic improvisations based on various scales and keys. And at the high school level, students should be able to use improvisation to create original melodies over various chord progressions. So try this. If you are teaching middle school band, for instance, and I was a band director, make one of the playing test submissions a 4-bar improvisation after they learn their new note, for instance, in one of their method books. Or for high school, as you learn a new scale, require a small improvisation in that key. It'll get the students thinking about the scale in a different way. And there's some excellent examples of software to create backing tracks and to create arrangements on this slide. Sorry, I got some lawn mowing going on outside my house here. Musical response. Responding refers to reacting to music and musical performances and requires the students to listen to, describe, analyze, critique, and evaluate music. Nothing can replace a live performance. However, with the abundance of musical performances available online, for instance, YouTube, the musical response standard is easier to incorporate now more than ever. One thing I discovered as a high school band director was that you can't tell someone how to play with a characteristic sound, they have to hear it. And so I learned the importance of taking class time to show videos of professional musicians and performances. And then we would do listening journals for jazz band, and then that shifted over to listening journals for concert band classes and percussion ensemble. And students would submit their listening journals on a Google form, and I have an example there. And you can try this fall. When students submit a performance assignment, as they will, also ask them to critique and describe and evaluate their submission. You can use a rubric on Google Sheets that the students can edit, Google Forms such as the linked example, or have the students record a verbal response. Get them to think about their performance. That's the whole point in the musical response. Contextual relevancy is meant to bring the student's understanding of music to a global context by applying knowledge of music in relation to history, culture, heritage, other content areas, ideas, skills, including 21st century skills and lifelong learning. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but there's a great amount of information online to help teach this standard and for your students, because by teaching the standard, your students will have a greater understanding, awareness, and appreciation for music. And you can see some of the examples in the slide. Okay, so to wrap up, I would encourage all educators to take this time of remote learning as an opportunity to seamlessly integrate the ML3, MR, and CR standards into their weekly instruction. We teach the musical response and contextual relevancy standards because it helps our students understand music at a greater level and thus better and more well-rounded musicians. Get to know the MR and CR standards if you're not familiar with them. Not only are they incredibly important for growing well-rounded musicians, but they are fun and they are perfect for remote learning. Thank you so much, and I hope that was helpful.
I have
Hey,
to unmute myself. Thank you so much, Andrew. I'm going to introduce Amber again, and she is a fantastic elementary music specialist who is actually going to be able to walk you through some of her classroom activities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Houk. I am an elementary music educator in McDowell County at Glenwood Elementary. This is my 9th year of teaching, and I will be teaching about 300 students face-to-face this year, and I will have some more students who are virtual. I will be teaching from my cart, so I'll be going into classrooms, and our second through fifth grade students are going to be rotating weekly in their classrooms, and then our K1 students are going to be coming to class daily. I will have the opportunity to work with each class for 1 month at a time just to reduce the exposure and the amount of people that are traveling throughout the building. So that's a little bit about my setup, and I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the things that I plan on doing with my students today. I did want to let you know, though, that I'm here to help, so feel free to email me with any questions. And of course, I'll be sticking around at the end to answer questions as well as if you have any of those. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm planning on reaching my virtual students as well as reaching the students that are in my classroom. One way I'm going to do that is through offering a Bitmoji classroom. A lot of you guys, I'm sure, have seen those, but it's basically just a slide where you can link to the objects or pictures on a slide, and you can link to an external site like YouTube or a music activity that you want them to do. So there's some links here that you are more than welcome to check out on your own time. And exciting news, on August 13th, there's going to be another Making Lemonade webinar specifically about Bitmoji Classroom. So I signed up today, and it's at 3 o'clock on August 13th. So come join us to learn even more about that. On the next slide, though, I did want to show you guys a little example of my music Bitmoji classroom. So this is what it could kind of look like. A Bitmoji classroom can do a lot of things. You can organize it in a lot of different ways, but one way to do that is to help use it to help you structure your lessons. So each of the components in this slide are a part of my lesson. So for example, like on the very bottom, underneath the bottom shelf, there's a little whale, and it is a vocal exploration. I did a video of a vocal exploration, and I think they're showing you that a little bit. So I found one of a teacher who had her little whale puppet, and she was exploring the voice. So that's one component of the lesson. There's some other stuff on there too, like the microphone is the echo song, the little frog is a simple song. So those are just little components of my lesson. And sorry, my phone's ringing in the background. I'm just going to let it ring. They are, so there's different components on the shelf of the whole lesson. And that can just kind of help you structure your lesson in the classroom and also in a virtual environment too. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but I just wanted to show you guys an example, and the link is there for you guys on the previous slide, so you can check it out a little bit more in depth. I did want to tell you guys a little bit about how I'm going to structure my lessons. This year, I'm going to be teaching 45-minute lessons, and I'm going to be using a Kodai Fire Robin approach. And having this lesson structure, I think, can just be really helpful for me, so I make sure I'm covering everything that I need to cover. And it also is helpful for the students. They can kind of see a logical progression and flow throughout the lesson. So my goal with this structure was to kind of take and have students moving, and all of the activities with movement, have them moving just in their little area around their desk. And I also wanted them to be able to at least hear some singing, even if they were not going to be able to sing themselves in class, that they would at least be able to hear some singing, and that they would be able to have some contribution to class. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the speaking things that go into that. So I wanted to actually take you guys through a little bit of this lesson structure, and we're going to kind of do some of it together, kind of interactive. So feel free to participate. We're just going to do kind of little snippets of each thing. I've got my music here, and usually when my students come into the classroom, we will do some beat motions, just practicing keeping the beat. So I don't know if you can hear it here, but I'm going to just keep on keeping the beat. Oh, let's try that again. Hold on. Always a technology thing, right? We're just going to practice keeping the beat. Let's do it this way. There we go. And I would do it like with little kids. These lessons are kind of like K1. So we would have some tapping, different parts, and I would just have them follow me. I don't know if there's lag time on you guys' video, but I promise I'm really keeping the beat. Another thing you could do for older students is you could have them do groups of 2, or if it's in triple and 3. So you could have them do that. And I'm just going to stop the music here for sake of time. Sorry if you couldn't hear the music. There really was music playing. But another thing you could also have them do is create their own places to tap the beat on their body, and everybody could follow them. So a great way to get kids moving and kind of get them started as well. Also, I'm just going to mention that there are some links on these slides as they go along. So all the activities that I'm doing and more are on these linked resources on these slides. The next thing I'm planning on doing in class is a move it. And one of my goals in class is to kind of help students be able to keep a steady beat. But another goal is to help them be artful and expressive as they move their bodies to music. So the next activity in our lesson will help us with that. It's called a move it. I'm again kind of going to play some music. I would normally have the kids stand up here. I'm just going to stay seated for my space here, but feel free to follow along with this this move it here. And this is, I'm just going to stop that for sake of time, but this is a really beautiful move, a great way to get kids feeling the music and enjoying moving. The last thing on this slide is a finger play. Finger plays are great for community building. They're great for kind of doing small motor movements, and also to kind of connect with that literacy that we want to encourage students to do. So I'm going to invite you guys to make some fruit salad with me today. So get out your chopper and get out your favorite fruit, and we're going to go. Here we go. Chop, chop, chippity chop. Cut off the bottom and cut off the top. What we have left, we'll put in the pot. Chop, chop, chippity chop. And again, I mentioned these lessons are for K2. I do have some kind of extensions for 3-5 that I use, changing up some of the repertoire to make it more friendly for those older students. But I would probably use a similar structure in my classroom. So this finger play and rhyme is kind of just encouraging that playful factor, and we can get fruit salad in the bowl and stir it up and eat it and let the kids kind of name some different fruits that we could chop up. So that's really fun. The next part of my lesson is one of my favorite things, which is just helping the students explore movement. So it's not as like choreographed, but it's a little bit more exploratory. So today we're going to do a little activity about being in an elevator. So like I said, I'm going to stay seated for my space here, but if you guys want to stand up, I'm going to be the elevator operator and we are going to get on that elevator. So here we go, guys. We are on the 5th floor of our tall building, okay? And we want to go to the 4th floor because we want to get some ice cream in the ice cream shop, okay? So everybody move down to the 4th floor, okay? And then I think we should go to the 3rd floor because there's a pet store there and we want to see those cute puppy dogs. Let's go down to the 3rd floor. We'll do one more, guys. And on the 2nd floor, there is a library. So let's go to the library. It's on the 2nd floor, okay? All right, and then I would go on down to the 1st floor, maybe into the basement, and it's just kind of a level exercise for those kids to get that. I would also extend that by jumping around the floors, so going from the 5th floor to the 1st floor and things like that. And then I would let the students be the elevator operator, and they get to pick the floors. And you can also make a taller building, right, like 10-story building. I wanted to talk a little bit about the rotating activity. I'm going to kind of introduce my Bitmoji classroom in the classroom with the kids so they know what to do with it. Maybe we might need to do an action song and just get up and move around or modify a music game. Or for the instrument activity, I'm thinking this year is going to be more found sounds, disposable instruments like paper cups, but kind of getting them to hear some different timbres and experience music in a different way. The last 2 components of my lesson I wanted to share with you guys is a song tale. This year is going to have to be pre-recorded, but normally I would sing for my students at the end of class, just a singing story. And so I wanted to sing you a couple of verses of one of my students' favorite song tales. It's called There Was a Man and He Was Mad. It goes like this. There was a man and he was mad. So he jumped into a paper bag, but the paper bag was oh so thin. So he jumped onto the tip of a pin, but the tip of the pin was very sharp. So he jumped onto an Irish harp. So it keeps on going like that, guys. It's a silly song. My students love it. And it's great to work on rhyming, too, if you want to kind of connect to literacy. That's one of the resources that I linked under Song Tales. There's lots of them. It's a great way to connect with your students. And so I'm looking forward to even using that in a pre-recorded way, but still getting to connect and have some singing in our classroom. Last component of my lesson I'm excited to introduce this year is mindful music. And this resource comes from a website called The Well, and I've linked it here. And it's pretty simple concept. It's basically just an opportunity for students to listen to music, kind of be able to focus on their breathing, focus on their thoughts, or just focus on the music for a few minutes before we end class. So the way it works on here, it's just like a little prompt. It's a recording, and it's just a prompt at the beginning of the recording that gives a little background to the piece, real short, and then just a focus for how to listen to the music, listening for a particular instrument. So that can be a really great way to end class. It is a paid program, but they have a lot of free resources on there too. So be sure to check that out. I did want to talk a little bit about how I'm going to be including singing in the music classroom. And I think that it can be kind of interesting this year, but I've got some ideas that I wanted to share with you guys. One of the things that I've used in the past is Flipgrid, and I know a lot of you guys have heard about that. And Flipgrid's just a great platform to offer tutorials. It's free, which is the best, and it also invites and encourages students to give a response video. So some ways that I plan on doing that is, as I mentioned before, pre-recording some songs and also having students submit songs that maybe we could play in class to kind of get the singing in the classroom, even if we can't do it physically. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you guys is just a family singing project that I plan on doing, which hopefully will be pretty simple. I just want to introduce the family to 3, 4, maybe 5 fun songs, and then have a little Flipgrid video of me teaching them the song. They can watch it, they can learn the song, and then sing it sing it back to me on a Flipgrid video. They can record it, and then I can send them a digital certificate just congratulating them for participating in the challenge. So I'm really looking forward to incorporating singing, movement, and keeping the beat into my music class this year, and looking forward to keeping the music going no matter what situation that we're in. So thank you guys for letting me share with you.
Amber, thank you so much for that very in-depth look at how your hybrid class is going to work this year. Next, we've got Jason Spencer from the North Carolina Symphony to share with you probably what many people are wondering about what their plan is for education this year. So Jason, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Bren. Hopefully I have some answers, but maybe not all of the answers. As Miranda mentioned, I'm Jason Spencer, Director of Education for the North Carolina Symphony. First of all, I do want to thank Brandon and Sayward for inviting me to join today and providing a glimpse into the digital resources we have to offer, and also what the Symphony is planning for the fall. First and foremost, we have continued to maintain our mission of statewide service in music education. While we certainly recognize there's no shortage of resources out there for orchestras and from orchestras all around the world, we have sought to create and present material that will be of interest to educators and our audience across the state. Many of you probably know about our annual education concert, which we present statewide and serves more than 50,000 elementary students each year. In fact, I think I saw many names on the participant list of elementary teachers that have brought their students. So thank you for joining. Some of you may even remember seeing the symphony come to your town when you were in 4th grade if you grew up in North Carolina. In March, we released our virtual education concert and coinciding lesson plans, which can be viewed at the link above, ncsymphony.org/virtual with the password 1932. Hopefully many of you have already seen this. This was a fantastic video that was pre-recorded a few years ago. We were fortunate to put it all together. It features 6 different pieces with commentary provided by our associate conductor in between pieces. The pieces and lesson plans are all available individually as well, in case you want to pick and choose lessons to coincide with your curriculum. I've had several teachers ask about whether or not we're doing an education concert this year. I think the short answer is probably no, at least not in the format in which teachers are accustomed. We'll continue to have this virtual education concert mentioned above. That's going to stay on our website and stay on YouTube throughout the school year. We're also hoping to refresh that video with some new lessons and material that you can use. So it's not exactly using the same stuff if you saw it back in March. Yes, the video will be the same, but we might add some new lessons, and hopefully those will come out next month or in October. We're also hoping to offer a condensed teacher workshop later this fall to go along with these new lessons. So I'll speak a little more to that in a few minutes. If you follow our social media and YouTube pages, you will have seen some of the other projects we've been working on since March, including our Meet the Instrument series. This was something that was very recommended and requested by a lot of teachers, and we're excited to launch this and launch it for all of our instruments. We started with our timpani. Our principal timpanist, Colin Hartnett, did a video, a really fun video. Check it out. It's on YouTube. It's Meet the Timpani. It's a short 5-minute video that introduces the timpani to your students. It's good for elementary students, but we've heard from adults and high schoolers and everyone of all ages really enjoyed meeting the instrument, and hoping to continue offering this through the fall. Also on our YouTube page is a string quartet video that we put together back in the summer. This is educational as well. I encourage you to take a look at that. We also have some musicians videos just from clarinet to viola to violin. It's a wide range also on our YouTube page, so feel free to check that out. We're also hoping to release more educational videos this fall, and alongside those videos will come some lessons and activities that you can use. So we're going to continue to release new content this fall and hoping that you can implement it into your classroom. Look for the first of these videos to come out later this week or next, featuring our string quartet on a Ravel string quartet. We're going to have some lessons and activities that you can use in a virtual classroom setting. Again, these resources will all be available on our virtual landing page, if you want to call it a portal, ncsymphony.org/virtual. That's where we're going to be uploading most of the content. And yes, a lot of our content is geared for elementary students, since that is our largest audience. But for you, the middle school and high school teachers out there, we do want to open up some opportunities for you all as well. Over the summer, we launched a tune-up workshop series, which features one of our musicians leading a 1-hour virtual workshop with students around the state. The focus of each of these workshops has been on all districts and all state audition repertoire. In July, our associate principal cellist, Elizabeth Gilman, led the first of these workshops with about 20 students from around the state on the Senior Region Orchestra audition solo, which was Vivaldi's Cello Sonata. It was just a phenomenal experience for those students, and I think we're excited to continue offering this for all the instruments, and we're calling it our Tune-Up Workshop Series. Again, our website will have the most up-to-date information on the next one. Another program that might be of interest to all of you is a new one we're launching this fall. It's called our Adopt a Musician, or in our case, it'll be Adopt a School program. This program, we're thinking, we haven't done this before, but we're hoping this will be something that's of interest to you all. It's a program where we will pair one of our musicians with your school, and depending on your grade level, this musician will be available virtually to talk with your students, lead sectionals if applicable, and just generally serve as a resource if a student has a question, or if you have a particular question about a fingering or anything else that a professional musician could answer. There will be an application process for this, and for any interested schools, hopefully beginning later this fall. And then the last thing I want to mention is a modified version of our teacher workshop coming this fall. As I mentioned, we're working on creating new lessons and activities to pair with some of the videos we have already released, including lessons for the virtual education concert. In lieu of the annual teacher workshop, which prepares teachers attending one of our education concerts, this webinar will focus on new lessons and how to implement them into the classroom. More information, what should be available in the next few weeks. I know I've said a lot of things are coming soon. We're just gearing up and we're trying to put everything together and have it all streamlined come this fall. I think that's all I have to share right now. Thanks again to Brandon Sayward for being with me this time. If you have any questions or want any more information about the programs that I've shared, feel free to shoot me an email. My contact information is below. We also have an advisory committee comprised of teachers from around the state. If you're interested in being part of this group and sharing thoughts and suggestions for future educational content, we'd love to have you. It's open to K-12 teachers, so regardless of what grade you teach, we'd love to have you and hear your thoughts and how things are going for you and what we can do to support you. You can email me for more information about that as well. And of course, I want to thank you all for everything that you do. And of course, we look forward to seeing you at a symphony concert sometime very soon. Thanks all. I'm going to pass it off to Brandon, I guess.
Thank you so much, Jason. We're excited about all the things that the Symphony is doing to try and meet the needs of teachers as well. I'm excited to introduce Justin Dickson. He is the band director over at Carroll Magnet Middle School, and he and I have taught together for a while, and I knew that he was working through a lot of the big questions that other educators are working through. So I'm going to let him share with you some of his thoughts.
Thanks, Brandon. Hey, everybody. So we're going to spend 10 minutes right now talking about changing expectations and maybe questioning some things that we've been taking for granted with what we do. As I've sort of watched the conversation develop over the past couple of months, especially on like Facebook groups with music educators and things like that, I've observed that it seems like the teachers who are most overwhelmed by what's happening right now are the ones who think that they have to keep their class the same as like the way it was before the plague, only now they have to do it online, which is an assumption. That's an expectation, right? That we have to keep doing everything we were doing before, but now we have to figure out how to do it online. And the rest of us are just overwhelmed because we got really good at doing things the old way, and now we don't really know another way to be, which is why we're watching webinars like this one. So let's kind of unpack some of that a little bit. What if you were only expected to, let's just be silly, okay? Just to use an extreme example here. What if all you were expected to do this school year is just get online and do something like shadow puppets or like a coloring book with your students? That's absurd. But would you be overwhelmed? No, of course not. You could do that, right? Okay. So Is it the circumstances that are overwhelming, like the whole teaching online thing? Is that what's overwhelming, or is it our expectations that are overwhelming to us? Okay. Next slide, please. So what are your expectations? Really, like, think about it. Like, what are your expectations? What are you taking for granted? What do you think has to happen every year with your program? Is it overwhelming? If it's overwhelming, do you actually have to do that? Or is that just what you think you have to do? Okay. It's starting to sound like therapy, I know, but like these are the questions that are rolling around in my mind right now. I want to talk about band for a minute because I'm a band teacher, and you know, one of the things that's really hit me hard is I'll put it this way: if an alien were to visit us, okay, if an alien were to visit my classroom and most band classrooms to say, what is band? What's the purpose of band? What's the purpose of what they're doing here? I actually think the alien would conclude that the purpose of band is to win trophies and auditions. This is how we know who has a good band program, right? Like how many trophies they have. What do they get at MPA? How do they go to MPA and get grade 6? This is, and the guys who really, really are good at this, they get put into a Hall of Fame. We've got a Hall of Fame. You think the North Carolina science teachers have a Hall of Fame? I looked, they don't. We're kind of a little bit obsessed with trophies and auditions, and I think, in fact, even the students are. I've actually heard students say things like, "Why do I have to practice if there's no auditions anymore? What's the point in practicing?" What I've heard kids say, "What? Why even have band if we can't go to competitions?" That hits me hard. That's a gut check. And it's a good question. I think our kids seem to think that the point of music is to win stuff, and they got that from us. And maybe that's why, like right now, this is so hard for us because all that got taken away, right? The trophies, the marching band competitions, the MPAs, and the all district auditions, all of that got taken away, and that was kind of our purpose before. That was what we spent most of our time working towards, and now we don't know what to do with ourselves because they took away our toy. And the other big thing is like, and this to me is even more of a crisis, that we don't really know how to motivate kids or even ourselves without that carrot on a stick. We don't know how to motivate kids without giving them something to go out and win. And maybe we need to reckon with that. And maybe this is the year to do it. Those trophies and the auditions and stuff, those are expectations that we created. That we did that. Okay. And we can uncreate those expectations. A question that I put on, I actually posted this question on Facebook like a year ago, and without having any idea that this would actually come true, I just said hypothetically, what if for 1 year you didn't have to do any competitions, you didn't have to go to MPA, you didn't have to do any auditions for 1 school year? What would you do? What would you do with your classes? What would you teach? What music would you program? What would change? What would you do? Think about it. If you didn't have to do that stuff for 1 year, what would you do instead? If you could do anything? Well, guess what? Here we are. And I think we're on, I think we're going to have a real renaissance here. I think a lot of good is going to come to this. I think we're going to get back to the heart of what all this is really all about. and I think our kids are too. Our biggest challenge, I think, to kind of go back, and I'm not just talking about band here now, I think this is true for everybody. Right now, our biggest challenge feels like how to teach our content with this new medium online. And that's what we're worried about right now. But I don't think that's actually our biggest challenge. I think our biggest challenge and what we really need to be thinking about right now the most is how can we make our classes fun and meaningful for our kids so that they want to learn and they want to be a part of it. How can we make our classes fun and meaningful for kids so that they learn and they want to be a part of it? And I think that starts with our attitude. We will set the tone for our band program, or our elementary music program, or our orchestra program, or our choir program. Whatever you got, our attitudes will set the tone, and we really have to be mindful of that. We can't complain in front of the kids. Sorry, I'm losing my place here. We need to focus on the things that we can control. This is a big one. Focus on the things that we can control and not on the things that we can't. Because there's so much that we can't control, including things like with our students, right? We can't control who shows up to class. We can't control if they turn in their work. What can I control? And I think the biggest thing, this is more important than any of that, is to have compassion for what these kids are going through right now, because this is a crisis. And, you know, it's really, really hard on these kids. First of all, just things like, I had a kid who wasn't showing up to our online stuff in the spring, and I contacted his parents, and this was during all the riots, and you know, he was at his dad's house downtown, and all these riots were just about at their front door, and there's smoke coming in through their windows and stuff, and they had to bug out of there. You know, this is the kind of stuff that's going on. We don't know what's going on with these kids' lives, and we really need to be compassionate. The other thing is, I know, like for me, from middle school, but I think this is true for everybody. The social aspect of school is so important to their development and their mental health, and they're not getting it. These kids are gonna really be in a rough way. I think this generation of kids, like this is a real serious mental health crisis, and we need to have compassion for that while we're trying to make them care about dotted quarter notes. So anyway, we need to understand what they're going through. And I think more than anything in the world, this is kind of my last point, more than anything in the world, what they need is each other. And we can be part of that. We can be part of the solution. I mean, any music class, this is a chance for them to be together and to have each other. And okay, so if it's not about the trophies and the auditions, and what's it about? Well, I'm not 100% sure yet, because I'm part of the problem too. But I think the starting place is, let's be together and let's care for each other and let's just do something good together, and let's make this about being together first and making this meaningful, and we'll go from there and we'll get some more good ideas. Now, as far as practical stuff, okay, so that's all, you know, now that I've completely deconstructed, you know, music education in America, you're welcome. Okay, so what do? We have someone here, fortunately, who's been doing this for several years already. She's been teaching a virtual academy band program for years, and we're going to pick her brain right now, and we're so fortunate to have her because she's already started working on reinventing the wheel for us. So we're going to hear from Michelle now. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And yes, if you have not seen the chat, Justin set the stage, and Michelle is going to help us work through some solutions.
Awesome. Hi, all. My name is Michelle Rose, and I have taught at a full-time virtual school. This is my 4th year. I currently teach middle school general music, high school music appreciation, and I also direct the extracurricular virtual band/orchestra. So I have both instrumental ensemble in one and choir, virtual choir. And so today I'm really going to talk about how my experiences as a virtual teacher have kind of played out. I will include the lessons that I've learned from some of the mistakes I've made, the benefits of having synchronous rehearsal, as well as a little bit about how my synchronous rehearsals work. So I'm definitely not going to be able to teach you absolutely everything in the limited time I have, but at the end, I have linked to a resource guide that you can see at the end of my segment and you can use for further learning after this session. I have included my previous sessions that I've done, blog posts, podcasts, if it's just about any medium of learning that you would like, it's in there somewhere. So first though, before we dive in, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about my own teaching situation. So right now I teach 2 courses that are graded. Okay, so the high school music appreciation course is offered each semester. We're on a block schedule, and all my students range from grades 9 through 12. I typically have between 25 and 40 students. I think I have 35 on my roster right now. And so I teach a synchronous class every single day for 60 minutes for my high school music appreciation class. Now, the other class that I teach is an 8th grade general music course. And so students participate in one 30-minute synchronous class per week. And I give that class 2 times per week, kind of just to divide it up. And so since this time is really limited, students also have a 10 to 30-minute flipped lesson that is asynchronous. And so this lesson will align with whatever we're doing in class that week. And I have about 275 students in 2 separate sections. So that's, like I said before, about half in each live session. I also have a high school TA that helps me during those live sessions. So don't forget to use older students. Even if you teach elementary, you could use 5th graders to help you out with kindergarten, or you can use, high schoolers to help you out with 8th grade. Or, don't limit yourself because you no longer have 4 walls that you have to be in. I use students all the time, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed in live class. I trained a high school teacher or high school student to be a TA for my 8th grade class, and she answered all the questions while I did teaching, and it was just fantastic. So the extracurricular virtual ensemble, which I know a lot of you are interested in, it started in the fall of 2018, and I basically developed the model that I use for rehearsal as part of my master's work at UNCG, which I finally graduated from this summer. I'm super excited. But the virtual ensemble at my school is open to students in grades 6 through 12. And since it's extracurricular, students don't receive any grades. So they show up to everything because they want to be there. All synchronous rehearsals happen outside of the students' required synchronous class time. My virtual ensemble consists mostly of my virtual instrumental ensemble consists mostly of band instruments, and I have 2 violins. So we mostly end up playing flex arrangements, which I highly recommend even if you don't have a small program, because there are less parts, but you can find flex arrangements for any ability level, which I really love. And so especially if you're looking to kind of simplify things this year, flex arrangements are great for that. And so we rehearse twice per week for 30 minutes. My virtual choir also meets twice per week for 30 minutes, but the structure I found needed to be slightly different. So one 30-minute slot is devoted completely to sectional work. So each section meets separately. I found that my choir students were having a little bit more trouble learning things on their own. So we have a devoted sectional every week. And so, for example, last semester, my altos met on Mondays, my soprano ones met on Thursdays. Then everyone comes together for one full 30-minute choir rehearsal each week. So that gives you an idea of kind of my entire setup. All right, so let me save you some time. I want to talk about some of the mistakes that I've made as a virtual teacher because there really wasn't a lot of music happening online in grades K through 12 beyond private lessons when I first started teaching. So I didn't really have a lot to go off of. So what I learned was basically through all the mistakes I made. So let me save you some time so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And so mistake number one is that I gave students way too many assignments. And so I found that when students were overwhelmed, they sometimes just like straight up stop turning in assignments, period. And so I found that if I assigned something due every single day, it was a lot less likely to get turned in. So you would think like kids are used to completing and turning something in every day in brick and mortar, so it wouldn't really matter. But for some reason, when students see so many things listed on a screen, it psychologically overwhelms them. So what I did was I switched my assignments to be due 1 or 2 days a week. Even if I assigned more things on those 1 or 2 days, it happened to get turned in more often just because it wasn't something every single day. So for example, maybe you'll have assignments due every Friday or every Tuesday and Friday, but try not to overwhelm your students with something every single day. That doesn't mean my students don't practice every single day, but they know that they should be working, through smart music, which is what I use more than what the assignment due date is, but it helps to get things turned in. Second, I also found that if I assigned too much at once, students were also less likely to turn assignments in. And let me dig a little deeper on this. So this was really true for my performance ensembles. Basically, if I assigned like a whole piece, I said, okay, just run through this whole piece or just run through half the piece or something like that. This really affected my perfectionist students, especially because those are the ones that are going to record it over and over and over and over again until they get it perfect. But a lot of times, I just wanted them to turn something in. And if it had mistakes, that helped me understand what I really needed to help them with. And so instead of, for example, telling students to record measures 1 through 64, I would break it down into smaller chunks. I would say, okay, record measures 1 through 32, record measures 33 through 64 in 2 separate assignments due on the same day. And so even though that is essentially the exact same thing, when my students saw 2 parts instead of just 1 giant assignment, they were more likely to turn it in. And so, yes, I do give homework and assignments to my extracurricular ensemble classes, and they do turn it in, yes. So it is possible, I promise. Students don't need to just be motivated by grades. Okay, next, mistake number 2. Do not assume technology skills. Okay. Even though our students are surrounded by technology these days, that doesn't mean they know how to use these tools. And so remember, just because you have access to something doesn't mean that they know how to use everything. It's pretty easy to click on an app or tap on an app and have it come up and use it. But a lot of these websites require you to do more than just tap and in 3 places and have it work. So, it will save you a lot of time responding to emails, as well as a lot of time trying to track down kids with missing assignments if you give from the outset these very explicit step-by-step instructions. I mean, like, break it down all the way. I tell my students exactly where to click, like exactly from logging in. And you may think that that is excessive, but I promise you it will save you time. If possible, always use Student View. And if you can't use Student View, make a student account. So that way students can see exactly what they'll be looking at on their screen. So that's what I did for Smart Music is I actually have a student account so I can see 1, what it looks like for my students, and 2, I can show them exactly where to click, how to use all the different tools in there. Then here's what I recommend. Don't just send a video out of here's how to do it. Okay, if you have synchronous class, take time to screen share and show students how to do everything step by step from logging into submission. And yes, I know that you're thinking, well, I don't want to waste time on this. I can send a video. I guarantee you there will be kids that still don't click on the video, but if they're in live class, they have a greater chance of seeing it. So I do this for every single new platform, and I do it quite often. I don't do it just once. I will do it pretty often. You can also create a quick video or a series of screenshots if you are absolutely pressed for time or completely asynchronous. But like I said, I only have 2 30-minute rehearsals a week, and I do the screen share, and it has saved me time and saved me a lot of emails. Secondly, the less clicks students need to log in, the better. If you can get something to integrate with your LMS so students don't have to enter a separate username and password, your chances of getting students to submit something will increase significantly. One reason that I really like Nearpod, and that's what I use a lot with my high school and 8th grade class, but it can be adapted for any grade K through 12. Students don't need an account to log in, so they can just click on a link and it will open it up. And so simplify as much as possible. Try to limit the amount of logins needed outside of your school's LMS. Limit it to 1 or 2 maybe, but you also don't want to overwhelm your students with too many different platforms. So pare it down. And then lastly, if you can't seem to figure something out, put a student in a breakout room, ask them to screen share. You'll be able to see exactly what they're clicking. Usually if they have an issue and I can't figure it out after they screen share, I'll just send them to tech support. Okay, and then the last mistake that I want to talk about today is that all work for asynchronous assignments must happen asynchronously. And you may be thinking, like, wait a minute, what does that even mean? And so for my students, they need to, so this is for my ensemble, they need to submit recordings in Smart Music every week. And so the intention behind this is that they should work on this asynchronously outside of class. However, and we all hit a wall. I know at every semester, my students hit a wall, I hit a wall. And so it seems like once we hit this wall, students are not keeping up or they're not submitting them as often or something happens, right? We all hit that wall. So instead of just doubling down or hounding them with emails or, you know, pointing my finger and making my teacher face in class, all I do is I give my students a work day in synchronous class. Synchronous rehearsal. So I have all my students log in to our platform. We use Zoom, and then I'll have them log into Smart Music and pull up their assignments. Then I put each student in their own individual breakout room. I ask them to turn on their mics to screen share and then have them work. And so I circulate through each individual room and give feedback as needed. So just because they've been assigned something asynchronously doesn't mean that you can't, you know, help them get it completed. And I find that this really helps to get over that bump that we get to every semester where, you know, motivation has run out and we are just kind of reaching for the next break, but we're not quite there yet. So if you're finding that students aren't turning assignments in, give them time in your synchronous classes to work on them in individual breakout rooms. And I also so I use this technique too with my high school music appreciation class, especially if they fall behind in my class. I require that they come to my office hour and I talk with them briefly, and then I have them pull up everything for their missing work and screen share as they work for the entire hour. So that way, I find the screen sharing really does wonders for accountability. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about virtual ensembles. And so you essentially need 3 tools for virtual ensembles. And I'm going to go into more detail in a moment with some of this. So hold on if you are wondering some other questions. All right. So first, you need something that will allow your students to record their parts, and then you'll be able to listen to those parts. So I personally use Smart Music at my school, and I just find this option to be the most convenient. Practice First is another platform similar to Smart Music, but they offer less pieces in their library, so that is the biggest drawback for me. It is certainly possible to do this with a free platform, though, as well, and I used Flipgrid when I first started out before we had Smart Music, and so other options are Audacity and BandLab. And so the main thing is students must play with a metronome to ensure everyone is playing at the same tempo. So if you're going to use a free platform without that built-in metronome, make sure that you are really teaching your students from the very beginning how you want them to use the metronome and how they know what tempo they should be playing at when they record. Next, you're going to need something that you can use to put all those student parts together. And so I do not make these beautiful viral Eric Whitaker style videos with my students. I just use something, I use GarageBand. And so that is just audio. And so I also don't want to burn out as a teacher. And so I don't find that the hours and hours and hours that I would need to put into this beautiful video would be worth it, and is not really the pedagogical purpose of why I teach ensemble. It's to have students play together and for them to be able to hear themselves play together and to feel in community. So that is personally where I come from. So like I said, I use GarageBand. It's only available on Apple devices though. So if you're a Windows user, you can download Audacity for free. I don't think you need to splurge on having a paid option to put together a performance, but again, totally up to you. I gave both free and paid options for that. And then lastly, you'll need a platform to rehearse on, preferably something that allows you to see all of your students in gallery view, like Brady Bunch style. Definitely check with your school on this one, since every school seems to have a different policy when it comes to technology platforms. Like I said earlier, my school uses Zoom, so that's where I hold my rehearsals. Okay, so what's the point of having a synchronous rehearsal? There are a few reasons on this, and you might be thinking, okay, but do my students really need this? Shouldn't I just record a video of myself giving instructions instead? Why should I do this? So first, synchronous rehearsals are relatively low prep. Recording videos can take up a lot of time. So if you're recording in advance, it just takes up so much time. Once you get used to running a virtual rehearsal, honestly, one of the few things that I don't have to prep as much for in online teaching, whereas everything else takes me kind of 2 to 3 times more than it did in brick and mortar. Secondly, they're going to ensure kids are getting musical broccoli. And so when I was in high school, I knew that long tones were really important for improving my tone. And yet, how often did I practice long tones on my own? Not very often. So yes, we want our students to play or sing a full warm-up on their own, but no matter how many times you tell them that in class, there will inevitably be kids who don't really do those important foundation exercises in class. So do those really full technique warm-up exercises with your students synchronously. Third, I found that having rehearsals really encourages practice, not because you're rehearsing music in class as the sole reason, but also you're guaranteeing that students are actually taking out their instruments out of their cases or singing their repertoire at least a few times per week. When you send a video out, there's not a guarantee that kids are actually going to watch it, let alone play or sing along with it. And I have found that the weeks that we don't have live rehearsals together, whether that's due to like standardized testing or an afternoon event with my school, I see a dip in assignment submissions. So it really does hold students accountable. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, synchronous rehearsal really builds community. Okay, so students aren't in your ensembles just to make music, right? They're also there to be a part of a community of people who are just like them. They're in ensemble to hang out with their friends and laugh and make memes about how their director says the same thing over and over again. Synchronous rehearsals give kids a chance to chat before rehearsal starts, to spontaneously turn the sectional into bring your pet to class day, which has happened to me. And I loved it, to talk about the stress of midterms or finals, to see other people making music. And so we create community through these synchronous rehearsals. And so don't just take it from me. I'm not going to read this entire slide to you, but I just wanted to show you that my students really do like coming to virtual rehearsals. And so they also feel connected to each other. They also feel like I'm teaching them something. I did not prompt them to say any of this. I just asked them what they liked about being in virtual ensemble. And so just want to put it out there for my kids because I can talk all day as a director. Okay, so next we're going to do a little exercise together. Okay, so in a moment, you're going to see an excerpt from a piece of music. It's a flex ensemble, flex instrumentation arrangement of In the Hall of the Mountain King. And so what I'm going to have you do, and yes, please actually participate, And this is something you can also use with your students as something in class. But look at the music and you're going to type into the chat one thing that you think you would need to spend time on, something that you would need to work on with students. All right. So here we go. All right, so go ahead and take a look at that, and 1 minute typing down, go ahead and look at the music. What do you anticipate is one thing you'll likely have to work on in rehearsal with students? Awesome. And for time's sake, 30 seconds was great. If we had more time, I would let it go all the way down, but you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. Now, same thing. What is one rehearsal technique you would use to address whatever you found on the previous slide, whatever you put in the chat? So go ahead and tell me, what is one way you would fix whatever you were talking about with students? One rehearsal technique or warm up. Awesome. Okay. And 30 seconds. Good. I should have just done 30 seconds because you are excellent music educators. Okay. So I did this. I took you through this exercise to show you that you do not need to hear your students to know what may happen and how to fix that. Okay. So this is not to say that I never listen to my students play or that you won't either, but please trust yourself to know how to teach without even hearing your students. I know that sounds like the opposite of what we do as music teachers, but trust me, it is possible for you to do this. And so now let's talk a little bit quickly about how my virtual rehearsals work. Okay, so before I taught virtually, I taught high school band. And basically in brick and mortar high school band rehearsals, it would go something like this. I would listen to my band, give them corrections. They would adjust their playing through a series of exercises if needed. And then we would play again for me to assess whether it worked or not. I would move on or try a different rehearsal technique depending on what happened. I do the exact same thing in the virtual setting, except some parts occur outside of synchronous rehearsal because my entire rehearsal is muted. So students come into Zoom automatically muted, and I use the gallery layout so I can see them. So the only person that they can hear is me and the metronome that I use. So let's break that down a little bit further. So basically, a synchronous rehearsal looks like this. I will prepare by listening to the recordings that students submitted from the previous week. I will look at my score. I will make notes on what I want to work on. And then in synchronous rehearsal, we'll do a full warm up to make sure that we're covering, especially those long tones with my band kiddos. They just, I know, musical broccoli. And then once we have done a warm up, we will rehearse based on step 1. And so I will use those same techniques that you were putting in the chat, but I just won't be able to hear students until the following recorded submission. Every 2 to 3 weeks, I also put my students' parts together into a full ensemble so that they can also listen and reflect on what is happening and kind of drive rehearsal themselves. So again, that assessment is not going to happen right in the moment, but when they submit their next, playing recording. Okay, so now you might be thinking, so I'm coming to the end, and you might be thinking, but wait, what else? So don't panic. Like I said, I put together a document. Oh, next slide. I put together a document with other resources for you to check out. There is an example of a synchronous band and choir rehearsal that I did in March with other music teachers. You can find it all at bit.ly/NC Music Panel. And then I am giving some back to school related sessions this weekend at FLAT, their annual back to school symposium. And it's pay what you can. You can pay as little as $1 to get in. So highly recommend checking that out. Okay, so I know I went just slightly over my time, but I hope that was helpful. And I know we're going to get to Q&A in a moment.
anyone else's minds blown? Because this is the second time I've heard it, and I'm still like, holy moly, I'm spinning. So that's great. Awesome. Um, so to kick us off on some thoughts, I just wanted to share a few things from my experience teaching as well. I was just going to say, choose one or two platforms and stick with them. You know, there are so many great things. You can use Flipgrid and Seesaw and GarageBand and Zoom, and you can use Canvas, and my brain is null parsing. But anyway, you can do all of those things, or you and your kid, you know, you have to re-instruct all of those things over and over and over, or you can choose a couple of them and do them really well. They might not be able to do everything you want to do, but you can probably do the majority of things that you want to do. Like Justin said, adjust those expectations. Then another thing that Michelle and I chatted about was being smart about our choral selections, choosing to buy music, and I do mean buy music that you can, or that comes with downloadable or streamable parts. So we have linked to a couple different distributors there that provide accompaniment tracks and parts for free when you buy this music. You're not paying the extra $50 for a rehearsal CD. And then sticking with cloud or browser-based apps allows your students to use whatever system they have available to them. So again, Justin is going to start us off with just a couple questions that he is itching to ask Michelle. And if you have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will make sure to bring them up to Michelle as well. Go ahead, Justin.
Thanks, Brandon. So guys, right now we're going to talk shop, okay? And we're going to pick Michelle's brain, and we're going to get into this. Michelle, the first question I had, you talked about recordings that the kids submitted from the previous week. What did they record? Like their part of the concert music that you're studying, or what exactly did they record?
Yes. So every week, well, it depends on, you know, where we're at in the semester, but usually, you know, if we're working on, we usually do 3 pieces, so it'll be a little bit from each. Sometimes I'll focus more on one piece than the other, but basically it's usually like a small section, maybe you know, 16 to 32 measures. And if I want a larger section, again, I will still have it broken down into the smaller sections. But basically, it just gives me an idea of how to prepare for the rehearsal the next week. And I kind of listen through. Usually, I mean, kids are pretty consistent, and I can pick out kind of the things that are across the board. If there's something that's happening in just one section, that is definitely an opportunity to have, you know, a sectional or something like that. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. So school starts a week from today. Huh. Talk me through the first few days of school. Talk me through the first 2 weeks of school, getting just the setup for all this. Because you've talked a lot about sort of once you get going, but let's talk about getting going for a bit.
Sure. So the first week, I really don't do anything related to a lot of music or content. I walk my students through a series of questions that help them create class expectations. And so we do that together. Again, another community building exercise. And so we talk about, like, how do we want to treat each other in rehearsal or class? How do we want the teacher to treat students in rehearsal or class? How do we use the chat? How do we use mic? What does being prepared for a rehearsal look like? All of these questions, students, I use Nearpod, and so you can either use the collaboration or the open-ended question tool, but basically that is step 1, because it can feel like there's a lot of distance between students and the teacher and their peers. So closing that gap of distance right away and making it feel like we're all buying into this really does help. I do a get to know you survey, so that way I know who's coming into my class and all of that. And then it's a lot of practicing. Here's how to use these tools, like making the questions really easy or whatever, but practicing, okay, these are the tools that we are going to use, like whether it's polling or chat or whatever. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to practice it. Having students log in, putting students in individual breakout rooms and going through each one, making sure every kid is logged in, helping kids who have issues. Now with that, if kids have logged in, they don't have to wait. So I would give like an extension activity or like you can get started on this if you were able to log in. But basically setting kids up to make sure that they can access the technology, that they can come and, make sure that they feel like they're a part of the community. And then lastly, the most important thing is that if kids have not logged into live class by day 2 or 3, I call home and I just say, hey, I noticed that so-and-so hasn't logged into live class. Is everything okay? I find that going into the conversation with just asking if everything's okay is very helpful. And so definitely also one more thing too, train your students where you want them to look when you are going to give them information and tell them to check it every day. So whether that's through announcements or through email or whatever it is, often in the beginning, I will say at the bottom, like if you read this and you, the first 3 people to email me the word band will get 2 bonus points or whatever. And then you can say in class, these 3 people emailed me first. Did you read the announcements? And some kids will be like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't do that today. And so training your kids where they need to look is important too. So it's not too dissimilar from brick and mortar, but it is, making sure that kids are getting into that technology and know exactly what to do and training them to look at the right places can go a long way in terms of how many emails you'll get later on.
Awesome. Michelle, I'm going to jump in.
Sure.
Alicia, I'm going to let you answer yours in just a second because I know yours is longer than this first one. So just Carrie is asking just for some clarification on your rehearsal. So I'm going to say it back to you and you tell me if I said it right. Okay. So it seems to me like you're directing the kids who are all on mute and they're responding to the cues of the conductor, which is a standard in our North Carolina standard course of study, even though MPA and competitions are not. And then what you're doing is you're able to hear them through the fact that they're recording themselves once or twice a week. And that's what you do your score study from and you prepare for the next week. And then additionally, every 2 to 3 weeks, you actually take those individual recordings, put them together so that it sounds like an ensemble in GarageBand or in Audacity. And then not only do you listen to them as an ensemble, but you also let others let them listen to themselves to do some self-reflection and ensemble reflection. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that is exactly what I do. And I think that part where students get to hear the full ensemble more than just at the end of the semester was really big. Because the first time that they hear themselves playing or singing together, they just go, whoa, whoa, like, oh, like I'm not alone in this, like we're all together. And it's really great too to kind of help foster those critical listening skills and also like, oh, my part's supposed to fit in here. And it, it's not, or it is, and that kind of thing. So it really helps to develop a lot of individual musicianship skills and also a lot of like critical listening skills. So it's more, I think like there are so many opportunities in virtual ensembles. Just because you're not playing all together synchronously doesn't mean that students aren't developing skills that are important, aligned with the standards, but also just they're going to pay dividends for your kiddos when they come back to brick and mortar because they do have to be more independent, right? Than maybe in a full classroom.
Right. And then some people are able to rehearse more realistically, we'll call it, over Zoom, and some people might not be able to, depending on the internet speeds in your area and the internet speeds of your other students. So it might be something that you can explore, and it might be an unexpected hurdle. So Alicia, I'm sorry, I don't actually know. Is it Alicia or Alicia? Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey everybody, it's Alicia. I hope you can hear me. Michelle, your information has just been wonderful. I think I'm trying to wrap my brain around putting my information together on these various platforms, whereas because I have so many different classes, 6th through 8th, year long to opposed to semester, and then you have your general music. So do you have any suggestions or direct me in a way to not over, because I think that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to put, okay, my 6th graders are going to do this, and let me put this in Canvas, and let me make sure I have my Google Docs for this, and my 7th grade semester kids are going to do this, but the year-long kids are going to do this. And so now I'm all over the place trying to bring everything back in.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing for me, okay, so I'll talk specifically because I have 8th grade year round and high school, that's block semesterly. And so for my year round classes, I don't know what your school requires, but just having one thing due, like one asynchronous thing due every week instead of like something due every day it really helps simplify for me, and it really helps simplify for them too. And if this is going to be like temporary, I mean, I think that if you have like all of your middle schoolers who are year round kind of doing the same thing, maybe with some adjustments, like whatever is going to make your life a little bit easier is definitely something worth doing. And so, yes, and so they still do daily work every day. So like my 8th graders will choose, when they want to do, their asynchronous work, if they want to work on it a little bit every day. If they want to knock it all out on Monday, some of them do, but yeah, having them only turn in one thing a week and having it auto graded too, use auto grading as frequently as possible. I also write out a curriculum map for every class, and I have the dates on there. So I reference that pretty often to keep myself organized. So that way, because it is overwhelming. I sometimes teach another high school class that's not music related, that's more of like life skills. And so having then those 3 going at the same time can be a little confusing. So simplify as much as possible, try to make like a curriculum map with dates on it, and don't overdo it. If you're finding that you are spending, 60 to 70 hours per week on this, try to simplify, because the name of the game is not to burn out, right? And so, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do the coolest thing ever, especially starting out. Even if it's not the most amazing music that you've ever taught, just give yourself some grace. Really, this year, what our students need from us is a welcome and safe place to be, right? And so I know so many of us music educators are overachievers, myself included, but I think just remembering what the focus is this year, and also considering that you are a first-year teacher this year, even if you've been teaching for 5, 10, 15 years, it is brand new. And so I felt like I was starting over when I first started in virtual. So treat yourself like a first-year teacher. And if you wouldn't tell a first-year teacher to do it, try to consider maybe what that means for you too.
And here I am talking to myself. All right. Thank you so much. If you have more questions, we're going to let you stick around just for a little bit, but we want to make sure to get through our closing information in the last couple of minutes. Next Thursday is National Lemonade Day. Thank you to Linda, who is on this call, for letting us know that. And since we are focused on making lemonade this summer, we're going to hold some arts ed virtual office hours where you can come and get a little bit of a refresher, dad joke, on anything that we may have gone over in the past summer and that you need a little brush up on or clarification on a point, or if you don't remember which session something was in and you want to come back to it, check in with us during those office hours and we're happy to help you out. Also, just going to share this really fast. Remember, you can come back to these slides at the bit.ly. There are things that you can actually go ahead right now, type into the chat, and what are you excited about? What are you super stoked to go ahead and get started on from this webinar? And then this is your PD certificate. If you haven't been with us for a little bit, we have automated our system. So this form might be a little bit different than you're used to, and there will not be anything for you to download at the end of the survey. You will automatically get an email with your name and the date and the name of the session in your email. So all you have to do is fill out that survey and submit it, and you will get your CEU certificate. Super excited about all of these ideas that you guys are sharing right now. Just also sharing that NC Virtual School has also, their teachers are used to also teaching online, and so they have been doing transition webinars for educators who are used to brick and mortar. This link will take you to their archived webinars, which cover all of these subjects, and increasing student engagement even includes one of their visual arts teachers as a presenter. These are all of our contact information. Again, you can find all of that in the slide deck, which will be emailed out to you tonight with all of the information and links to the recording and everything else you could possibly want. And now is a great time to answer more questions. And if not, we will see you tomorrow at Virtual Drama Games, which is phenomenal for anyone trying to incorporate movement or build community in the classroom as well.
It's got great icebreaker games for first week of any classroom teaching.
And we're actually going to be doing them. So it's going to be very, very hands-on tomorrow in a way that none of our sessions have been. So at this point, if you are filling out your survey or if you have already done so, you are welcome to go ahead and log off. I will or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask our amazing panel any questions, anything from Andrew's session, Amber's, Jason's, Justin's, or Michelle. Tomorrow will be a 90-minute session, but it's actually going to, most of the content will be, or sorry, those icebreaker games are going to happen in the first 30 to 45 minutes. And then the rest is really going to be about ELA and theater. So if you want to just come to the first part, that'd be just fine.
Michelle, I have a question for you. Do you do concerts or some version of a performance of some kind, or is the GarageBand sort of collaborative projects, is that kind of what takes the place of that, and it's kind of a thing that happens every week or two instead of, you know, at the end of the semester or whatever? Like, so what are concerts for you, basically?
Sure. So the past 2 years, we've done them in conjunction with the virtual art and talent show. And so the virtual ensemble performances are kind of just like a part of the entire 2-hour event. But this year I am planning to do separate concerts just because I think we're kind of at the point where we're ready to be a little bit separate. And so I am envisioning it just as like a night where students and families and whoever staff are invited, and it'll be, you know, combined band and choir, but students maybe will introduce the pieces in between, and then we'll all listen to the premiere of the piece. Like I said, I don't do the video mock-ups of, you know, students playing and singing, also because like you have to deal a lot with FERPA in that instance, and so it's just easier not to have to get signed waivers from all your kids. So we would listen, and then people, you know, can use the applause button or can you know, make comments in the chat or whatever. And so having a specific night for students and having a slide that's maybe a stage or whatever, I think will make it, a little bit more like a concert. And so that is kind of my plan for the upcoming year. And if you're interested too in learning more about the virtual art and talent show and how me and Katie and the other art teacher at my school, Deanna, run that, we do it grades 6 through 12, but they also just added an elementary portion last year. And so I'm the only music teacher, so I can only do so much. So I work mostly with grades 6 through 12, but it's one of our students' favorite events of the year. So I think like anytime you can show performances to many people, I say, go for it.
I'll say that Michelle's counterpart over in visual arts came and joined us last Friday for our Thinking Outside the Box session, and she actually went pretty in depth in that webinar. So you're free to go ahead and look at the last half an hour or so of the Thinking Outside the Box webinar, which is in our webinar archives. Additionally, last Tuesday, Betsy Graves from or in the dance world went very in depth on how she did a virtual performance. So if you're really into that, check out her session. She spent probably a good third of her session just talking about how to put on a virtual performance.
Yeah, and we also do a live open mic too at our art and talent show, which is super fun for students. So it's just another performance opportunity. But yeah, there's the way that we do it, there's like a separate breakout room. And in our platform that we use, you can actually like put things on the slides and they stay there. So students can go from room to room. And there's one where it's an art gallery and one where it's listening to the virtual ensemble. And then there's a live open mic room. And then there's also, we do pre-recorded Flipgrid performances. And so it's just a little bit of everything. I saw Linda's question in the chat to you. Will I be talking about more ideas for elementary music? Yes, that's a plan. I focused mostly on secondary band and choir today since it was beyond the rehearsal. But yes, there will be some more information. So I don't teach K5 regularly, but I do guest teach. And I did teach K2 music my very first year. So I do have some more ideas. If you look in the extended or the additional resources document, I actually do a session on how to play a singing game, Doggy Doggy, virtually, and how you can do that. And there's also an extension activity in Nearpod where students can use that to create their own rhythms and what you could do with that. So again, don't limit yourself just to like playing and having students sing or play along. Like there is so much you can do virtually. The only thing you can't do is all sing at the same time or all play at the same time. That's the one thing you can't do. But everything else with a little creativity is fair game for sure. Any other questions?
Panelists, you must have done an amazing job. I was expecting a barrage of questions.
I think it was a lot of information too. Like I'm still thinking about all the North Carolina Symphony things and like what I want to do with my classroom. It's just like marinating,
Yep. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream. And you all are welcome to log off at this time. And we hopefully will see you tomorrow or at Bitmoji Classroom. And I know that Amber will definitely be there.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Go have some dinner.
Thanks, Brandon, for putting this together.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
being here.
Thanks, Brandon.
Have a great one.
Thank you. You guys too.
Thank you, panelists.
All right, since I can't stop the recording, I'm going to actually go ahead and stop the webinar instead. So you all have a fantastic evening.